welcome to today's Christian music broadcast with Tyler Garth.
And hello and welcome to another edition of today's Christian music. So thankful to have with us again James Burkhardt, the CEO of SNT Communications. James, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Good.
All right, calling from sunny Florida. I've often wondered what the in the air there's a feeling of Christmas is like down in the tropics there. Someday maybe I'll find out, but until then I'll keep dreaming of white Christmases up here in Michigan. Thank you for coming on again for a second program here. This is going to be part two of our earlier talk we had last week. It's really a great gift to us to have you as a part of CSMI, Christian Songwriters and Musicians International, and the gifts God's given you and the experience that you've had are something that all of us can get some help from and knowledge from in this music industry. So anyway, we'll get into this in just a moment. Tell me what's been going on in your life lately. Anything God's done that's been of a great encouragement or a help that you'd... I know you just launched into some... I'm sorry, say that again?
So, God is good, and He is faithful every day of the week. So,
wonderful.
Enjoy.
Yes, He is.
Well,
last week we started out talking about your testimony, and you basically showed up at a church on your own at 9 years of age, and eventually at that church gave your life to Christ, and went out as a teenager and bought and started practicing guitar on some of them in the stores, and had your own band on the street changing lyrics to popular songs, and ended up at school for marketing and so forth, and God used you in some work with was it Tyndale Publishers, and then one of the first of its kind Christian contemporary music radio stations out in California before coming back to the Midwest and continuing to work in ministry and in marketing, basically, is my understanding. And you can feel free to review any or all of that. But we ended up a little short on our time to talk about the work God's had you in as of late. And why don't you bring us up to speed again with moving from the, I guess, I don't know if you'd call it the old style of Christian radio and media to entering into the Internet-based forms of media and how that works with and can work with Christian radio and ministry, and what sent you that direction? I know you eventually went back to school for some of this, and what you got a master's degree. Tell us what you do, James. And I believe we have our guest back, James Burkhardt.
Yep.
Are you with us?
There.
Wonderful. I'm not sure what all you had heard or didn't hear. We're going to have to edit some of this, but I'm thankful that you came back. Hopefully it wasn't something I said. Perhaps it was something I didn't say. But anyway, so we were basically catching people up from last week's interview where you gave your testimony, having shown up at a church on your own at 9, and so finding Christ, and how you ended up interested in Christian music and the marketing of that whole industry. As well as other areas of Christian ministry. And I wanted to jump ahead to recent years, I guess more recent years being within the last perhaps, I don't know, 10 or 15 years, maybe 20, but when did you begin to see the strength, the potential of the Internet marketing in Christian ministry and reaching the masses through the Internet?
Well, that started probably when I got serious about computers in like 1989.
Okay.
So, that's really when I began to see the power of it. And fast forward a little bit to 1998, 10 years later, when I started teaching music, I actually had a website called guitartutor.com where my students could log in and see their lessons and get tips, because when you were carrying 60 students a month, 50, 60 students a month, if someone has a question or needed to see something, that could tie you up on the phone for quite a while. So I just decided to create a website and post stuff there, and if they needed a question. And that's really where it began. And in 2003, 2004 is when I decided that I really wanted to spend most of the rest of my life working with Christian music and Christian worship and that sort of thing, and decided to go to Berklee College of Music in Boston. They had a great online program, so I was involved with that, studying at the master's level, and that really got me into the Internet much deeper, and seeing what was involved.
When was it then that you began SNT Communications? Did that spring out of that?
Well, yeah. SNT Radio and all that began in the spring of 2008. I think it was February of 2008. I was attending church and in the middle of worship, and all of a sudden I got this download from the Lord of start this new radio ministry, and I did. And then about 2 or 3 months later, the Lord told me, put it on the Internet. So I did. And the rest is, as they say, history. So
all right.
We've been doing SNTradio.com for about 10 years now.
Okay. And in doing that, now you've added Now Sound Worship. And so tell me, having been in the Internet radio area of work for some time now, how does that compare to the regular style of, tuning in on the dial?
Yeah.
And, do you think both will always exist? Do you think it's all headed for the Internet?
That's a hard one to say. I don't think over-the-air broadcast is going to go away completely. However, I do think that the dominant medium will end up being digital and Internet-based radio, and that those signals. See, right now, I think there's going to be a flip-flop. Right now, there's a lot of broadcast stations that also stream on the Internet. I think in the future, it's going to be more Internet radio that broadcasts over the air, just because so few corporations own the majority of the radio stations across the country. They're very homogenous and have lost a lot of their local flavor. So there's always going to be some room for that, but I think as corporations figure out, how inexpensive it is to base everything on the Internet and then rebroadcast it over the air, they're going to go, hey, wait a minute, we can cut our costs by about 90%.
Right. That was what I was just. I was just thinking
will.
about the same thing. You get rid of perhaps buildings and transmitters and the extra land and who knows what all, but we'll see where that goes. However,
Right.
you found a way of promoting music, Christian music, by God's grace, anointed Christian music through the internet, that really is divergent somewhat from today's way of doing things over the air, whereas today you got to have the money to pay the station to get enough plays on the radio, and the return is meager. And you apparently, from what I've read, you want the freedom to listen to music regardless of the marketing company, and say, hey, you know what, I just sense the anointing of God on this, and I'd like to get this out to people. And also happen to find a way to encourage those artists in their work by supporting them in a way that today's way of doing things over the air just does not compete with, doesn't compare with. Why don't you get into some of the details on that?
Well, now sound worship is relatively new. I've been thinking about how to do this for probably 3 or 4 years before it finally just gelled in my head in early October. One of the nice things about having to evacuate for the hurricane is that it we had to leave the area and go somewhere else, and that gave me an opportunity to really think through some things in a very peaceful setting without, in a place with electricity and stuff like that.
I didn't know there were upsides to that, so that's I'm glad that was used in your life.
Yeah. So during that period of time, God really spoke to me. I was in Alabama, and just outside Huntsville, where we went, and that's where God really began to show me what to do and how to do it. And a 10.5-hour car ride, there's lots of time for conversation and stuff, but the whole other time there's part of my mind that's flipping through things. And the way my creative process is usually solutions come to me to complex problems when I'm not consciously aware of it. I'm doing something else or thinking something else, and all of a sudden, bang, there's this answer.
Yes.
And it's like,
lawn mowing time used to be a great thinking time for me. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So anyway, but to get to the point of your question, we've decided to create a radio outreach where mostly, I think, independent artists who are really not concerned about commercial potential, but are faithful to writing worship songs that glorify the Lord, regardless of market potential or not, are hearing this new sound that God is releasing on the earth from heaven. And
yes, you mentioned in a little write-up here, it's echoing the sounds of heaven on earth is what you are looking to do. And
that's correct.
Very thankful to hear it. So, all right.
Yeah.
So, and now you said that you're looking for indie artists to provide about 90% of the music for the web-based stream. What's the other 10%?
Well, there are other organizations like Bethel Music and Morning Star out of North Carolina, the old PTL thing. Leonard Jones and Don Potter and those guys have pioneered prophetic worship for the last 15 or 20 years. And Bethel out of Redding, California, they've got satellite churches all over the place, and they have a very, I think, anointed worship thing going. Ray Hughes has a worship school in just outside Muscle Shoals in Florence, Alabama, that Ray has been teaching quantum worship and the principles of quantum worship for years and years and years. So that's where the other 10% is going to come from. I'm not necessarily looking to the secular-owned record companies and labels to be providing that per se.
Right.
I
yes,
mean,
and
there might be some, but
yes.
Well,
and most people
listening.
Yeah, most people listening to Christian music don't realize that many of those record labels that the artists they're listening to are not even owned by Christians. So that is an interesting comment. But let's get to, okay, so 90% of it you're looking to indie artists. And for those who are not in the music industry that are listening, indie artists, that means independent artists, not signed by a record label somewhere. And so they're on their own to get it all done and get their music out there. But let's say Tyler Garth wanted to look at getting his music played on your program. I feel that God's helped me with some music I was singing that either I wrote or in my case someone else wrote and said, here, why don't you consider recording this and using this in ministry? And so walk me through the steps. What do I do to have that considered and looked at by SNT, Sound Sound Music, Worship rather?
Well, it's pretty simple. You've got a couple of options. Not everyone is internet savvy, so the simplest thing is send me an email with a song or songs attached to it, like you did, Tyler, I think.
Okay.
And we've got a simple email to remember. It's called musiciansmarketer@gmail.com. And that's the simplest thing to do is just send me an email at musiciansmarketer@gmail.com. And I will personally listen to it, and we'll see what we can do. And it doesn't have to be, a perfect recording per se, because I know that there are a lot of songwriters who aren't necessarily good singers or performers or whatever, and I know that there's a lot of performers out there that aren't really anointed songwriters. So part of what I'm going to do behind the scenes is try to, if someone has written this phenomenal song, but it's not airworthy, let's say, in its original state because they're just, not a performer, that's not going to prevent them. I'm going to reach out to the other independent artists that I know and say, hey, there's this song here, maybe we should record it. And so there's that kind of thing, that dynamic going where.
So there's a networking as well, potential anyway.
Right.
Okay.
And if you are internet savvy, you can go to nowsoundworship.com/NSW. And basically there's a internet form you can fill out, and there's the opportunity to upload MP3s, or if you've got an MP4 video of a performance of a song or something, you can upload any digital media, including photos, of yourself or of your band or whatever you want me to have, I'll take a look at. And there's a portal right on that website where you can upload everything, and we'll get it, and it's all, secured and all that sort of thing, where people aren't going to be able to steal it or anything. But
sure.
And then we'll get it, and then if you make it, if the your song makes it onto the top 50 chart I'm going to pay you a much higher royalty rate. I think streaming music, you get paid 17.2 cents per 100 plays on internet radio, and that's not a lot of money. I'm going to be paying people $7 a month for the right to play their song, but an unlimited number of plays. But that's basically 2,200 times or 22 times the going rate. And
tell the people what the going rate is. No, give them the comparison. Let them hear it. What is? If they played it on a major radio station, what are they going to get? Yeah,
well, like I said, it's 17 cents roughly for every 100 plays. It's a fraction of a penny.
Right.
Per play.
And how many times? I mean, you were telling us the other day with commercials and all. How many songs do most stations play in an hour?
Yeah, well, they play. If the song's 4 minutes long and they're running, 5-6 minutes of commercials, which is typical. Sometimes 8 or more an hour.
Right.
You're only going to be playing 11 or 12 songs, 48 minutes worth, because they talk in between, and then you've got commercials and all that other stuff. So
right. So the chances of
you're not going to get too many.
Yeah, that's right.
So
and many of those who are getting the plays are those perhaps who, at least if they were an indie artist trying to break in, I think they have to cough up several $1,000s to even if they do decide to play it. So that's my understanding from talking to some other folks. You can please correct me if I'm wrong. You know far more about it than I do. But I'd like to play one of those songs that have been put out there recently that you worked on, and
sure.
Daryl John is the singer performer.
No, Daryl Boyer.
Or Daryl Blair. Please forgive me. Daryl Blair.
Boyer.
Thank you.
No.
I'm sorry.
Daryl
Boyer.
Boyer.
Okay.
Yep.
I stand
Daryl
corrected
Boyer.
twice. Daryl Boyer. Forgive me, Daryl, for not getting it right the first time. This is the song I Am Complete that you worked on with him, and we'll talk some more afterward about some of the marketing that you also have available. Here it is.
Great.
I Am Complete. All right.
Lord, you call me out by name. You say I'm more than just a face lost in the crowd. You chose to call me son. The price you paid for me declares my worth and your great love. Lord, you rescued me. You brought me back, delivered me, now I've been redeemed. You made me clean, set me free. Oh Lord, you brought me out of darkness and your blood has covered me. I am complete. It's victory. Lord, I declare that I can walk in all you've spoken over me. Oh, I have fearfully and wonderfully been made. I am complete. You said I am complete. It's who I am. complete.
That was the song "I Am Complete," being sung by Daryl Boyer, and James Burkhardt, who's on the line with me, helped him get that. What, you helped him produce the music, or did you have a hand in helping write it? Okay. And he's been sharing with us about...
Yeah.
Okay, you arranged it. All right. And he's James Burkhardt, the CEO of SNT Communications, an internet-based media and marketing firm that operates multiple streaming audio and video websites and so forth. He's been on the line with us telling us about NowSoundWorship.com and getting the anointed music of God, or as he puts it, echoing the sounds of heaven on earth through largely indie artists. And he also spoke of somewhat of what do you call it? Networking. If they hear something that has great potential, but maybe not up to par for radio play, seeing what they can do to connect people in the industry for recording and arranging and even performance of it, to get the anointed music of the Lord out there. But there's another area of your work, and that is in marketing. And I want you to tell us a little bit about that. Again, we probably should have just had 3 programs. We probably should have said last week we're going to do this in 3 parts, because we're short on time again. But tell us what you do with the marketing side of music. If someone just seems to have a particular anointing of God on them for music ministry, and they want to move forward, what can they do through?
Well, I've got this the new project called Musicians Marketer, and we've got our Facebook page set up, so you can go there and contact me if you're an indie artist and you've got a great song or a CD, and it doesn't have to be necessarily worship. I'm working with a lot of artists who are Christians that aren't necessarily writing quote unquote Christian music, and and I'm working with several artists that, believe it or not, are in their late 50s and early 60s. So people that are finding themselves retired or trying to establish going back to their passion. They've been playing music for years and years, and now it's like, hey, if I'm ever going to do this record project, I'll do it now. So,
well, I want to speak into what you just said.
Stuff.
I really do. I want to. I know there's a little bit of time, but I want to comment on that, because I had someone on this program earlier this year, and their music was some of the most anointed, and their story and how God got a hold of them and used them. And they went to Nashville, and they were turned away by a major radio station and recording company and they do a tremendous job. They were turned away because they were told they were too old. And they're not old compared to me. They're young. But they weren't in their early 20s presenting probably the Hollywood-style polished entertainment that we look for today, as professional as the person was. And so to me, that's another side of the beauty of what God has you doing, because it's in the anointing, and we're hurting ourselves in the kingdom in America sometimes by the way we treat who God is using. I'm sorry. Go right ahead. I had to stump on that for a moment.
but that's okay, because through the internet and through networking and some other things that we know how to do, we can help someone, earn high 5 or low 6 figures off a CD project, in performing and developing a fan base using social media and some other things. And that's what Musicians Marketer is all about. It's it's more of a consulting firm. I write strategic plans for artists, and if they want us to help them execute those plans, that's fine. We can do that too. But basically, it's a consulting thing where I can sit down with an artist and help them determine their vision and their mission, and determine the best market or audience for them to try to develop and how to do that.
Okay.
And then help them sell their CD online and get concerts lined up, places to play in front of an audience, and, sell some merchandise on the side, as well as CDs and all that. So
if I'm not mistaken, you also have connections with and a partnership, even with one person that I'm aware of, at least in Nashville, that are successful songwriters for people who are also looking for that type of work. So you've got some connections to try to put the whole thing together. And so where do they go? I know you've mentioned Musicians Marketers, the name of it, but
right. They can get a hold of me at musicianmarketer@gmail.com. That's my email. That's the best thing. They can contact me at Musicians Marketer on Facebook. And soon I'll have a website, musiciansmarketer.com. I just haven't built it yet. But we got the domain name, and we'll have that going as well. But right now you can either email me or contact me through Musicians Marketer on Facebook.
Okay. Well, that is great. There's a lot more to it. I wish people could hear you talk more on it. If they had come to our conference last fall in Gatlinburg, they could have pulled you aside afterward and picked your brain on it a little more. And I think you've even had some people act on what you were sharing. So we look forward to talking with you again, James. It would be great if we had you at our conference again next fall. And for our listeners, that'll be the second weekend in September up in the Dells in Wisconsin. And you can find out more about us at csminetwork.com. I've had James Burkhardt with us as our guest today. Again, the CEO of SNT Communications. It could be looked up, and I think you ought to peruse what God's got going on with his company. And with that, I'll say, shalom to you all, and thank you, James, so much once again for coming on the program today. It was a great blessing.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to today's broadcast, Today's Christian Music. We hope you enjoyed the broadcast. For more information, you can email us at cwnnashville@gmail.com or visit our website at csminetwork.com.
You don't have to fear